હેન્ડલ કરી શકો છો. અને હવે પછીનો જે સેશન છે મસ્તાની હિન્દુ હતી કે મુસ્લિમ, 2015માં એક મૂવી આવી બાજીરાવ મસ્તાની, જેમાં મસ્તાનીને મુસ્લિમ બતાવાય છે, એક ડાન્સર બતાવાય છે. પણ પ્રશ્ન એ છે કે એ ખરેખર હિન્દુ હતી કે મુસ્લિમ હતી, એ પ્રશ્ન રાવના કોઈ દસ્તાવેજમાં ક્યાંય દેખાતો નથી. પણ ઘણા લોકો માને છે કે હિન્દુ હતી, ઘણા લોકો માને છે કે તે મુસ્લિમ હતી. તેના વિશે વાત કરશે કુસુમ ચોપરા, જેમના પુસ્તકમાં એમણે એમ લખ્યું છે કે મસ્તાની એક વોરિયર પ્રિન્સેસ હતી જે ક્યારેય ડાન્સ નથી કર્યો. એમણે ડાન્સ કર્યો છે તો માત્ર કૃષ્ણની સામે. અને એમાં વાત કરશે વિક્રાંત પાંડે, જેમણે NS ઇનામદારની રાવ, જેના ઉપર આ ફિલ્મ બેઝ છે, એ રાવને ઇંગ્લિશમાં ટ્રાન્સલેટ કરી છે. અને ગૌરી વેગેનાર આ જે સેશન છે તેને મોડરેટ કરવાના છે. થોડીક જ વારમાં વિક્રાંત ભાઈ આવે એટલે આ સેશન ચાલુ કરીએ છીએ.
લંબે આવે એટલે
circumstance which was planned by their fathers. Her father, that is Mastani's Nanaji, was from Persia. He was a Yodha and he was in the Mughal army. And at that time, Chhatrasal's father, Champak Rai, was also serving in the Mughal army, and they were what today we would call buddies, you know. And they became such close friends that they decided कि भाई हम रिश्तेदारी बना ही लेते हैं. और उन दिनों में इतना हिंदू मुसलमान का चक्कर होता नहीं था. It was very common for these sort of marriages, and they had Anwar Khan's daughter, Ruhani, married to Chhatrasal. That is how the Muslim connection starts. But eventually, when Chhatrasal, converted his entire family to Pranami Panth, Ruhani also became Pranami. And by the time Mastani was born, it was definitely Pranami. Besides, I would like to make a point here that our culture, since time immemorial till today, is a patriarchal culture. Automatically, when you are born, you get the religion and the surname of your father. There is no choice over there, right? So when Mastani is born of a man who is Pranam Panthi, who is a Rajput Kshatriya, whose father was also a Rajput Kshatriya, what should this child be? Is she going to be a mother's daughter? We have got a matriarchal system in some corners, in some parts of Kerala, in some parts of the northeast. But on the whole, India is a patriarchal society. Now, the reason why I can understand that Muslim angle also was that after the death, after Bajirao and Mastani, dono jab guzar gaye. After 3 Peshwas later, there was a big issue of, the Peshwai, who would go, who would become the next Peshwa. And the 2 people who were in the competition were the grandsons of Bajirao's 2 wives. Kashibai's son Bajirao II and Mastani's grandson Ali Bahadur. And Ali Bahadur, because he resembled Bajirao so much, was a popular candidate. But he was eventually packed off to take over some area which is known as Banda, as the Nawab of Banda. And that is when all these myths about Mastani being a dancing girl were created. They were created and propagated by way of dramas, stories, folktales, and songs, geets, ghazals were written, and they became very popular because her name had been effectively edited out of the Peshwa Bakhars, which is the daily record which is maintained in the Peshwa office. So people didn't know much about her in the first place. And after all this, then sort of the whole story got twisted. And when Mr. NS Inamdar wrote Raud, which is a Marathi book originally published in 1974, up to that point of time, all the research was taking place on Bajirao. Nobody was really interested in doing research on Mastani to try and dig into her roots. Because you look at it, every history book has got one sentence in the chapter on Bajirao. And that sentence would read something like, the life and times of Peshwa Bajirao I were greatly influenced by a Muslim dancing girl called Mastani. And I'm a history freak. So after reading about 7-8 history books with the same sentence, the thought came to me कि यार ये औरत तो बहुत ही अनोखी होगी. Because throughout history we've had dancing girls. Not only in India, every corner of the world. But have you ever heard of a dancing girl's name, and that too in history books? And in each and every history book, we don't hear of any such thing. So that means Mastani एक बहुत extraordinary lady रही हो, and that is what inspired my research. But I was not the only one. There are very many who are. I mean, we were working. I started in the 1980s, and there have been other people like Dr. Vidya Sapre, Dr. Pramod Oak, there is a Dr. Narsi Oak in Indore, Dr. Bhagwan Das Gupta, Dr. Latna Achlekar, Vilasni Ben, so many, who have been doing research on Mastani's roots. And there is one person who ultimately became my resource person. That person was a gentleman named Ehsan Awara. He was the Postmaster General of the Banda district. And after devoting a lifetime of research devoted to Mastani, he produced a little booklet, you could call it, Mastani Kumar Sa, in which he has given all the facts possible. He bequeathed his entire research material to me before he died. In this book, there are the names of all Chhatrasal's wives and of his legitimate sons. And after Mastani's death, 22 stories were created about Mastani's birth. अब चक्कर ये है कि उनके मौत के बाद क्यों? उसके जीते जी किसी ने कहानी नहीं बनाई. She was accepted. He said, she is my daughter. She was accepted when he was getting them married. His, Sardars were there. Bajirao's Sardars were present. Pilaji Jadhav, Devanji Somnath Vanshi, Tukoji Pawar, and Naro Shankar, who was his guru in battlecraft. He was the one who taught Bajirao how to fight battles, because his father only taught him administration and diplomacy. All these people were there with him. Why did they not stop him from getting married to Mastani at the say-so of Chhatrasal? Because they agreed with the marriage. There is much more to the marriage than just a marriage. So, the Muslim angle, you see, because I am working with secondary sources, I cannot give you any document or any proof, but we have got secondary proofs which I will show you as we go.
Yeah, I think I'm of a slightly different opinion here. That this whole topic of Bajirao Mastani becomes interesting because it's a tragic love story. Had it not been had Bajirao just got married and stayed with her and produced children, it would not be something which people would be talking about today. The whole reason this is so debatable is the fact that one, it was a romance, it was a tragic romance, it was besought with a lot of political intrigue. There was a lot of, some people might call it hypocrisy, because Bajirao was a Chitpan Kokanasta Brahmin who married, so to say, a Muslim woman whom people could not accept as his legitimate wife. Shivaji was the ruler earlier who had multiple wives, but he was a Kshatriya, he was a Maratha. It was the Peshwas who took upon themselves as the Prime Minister on behalf of Shivaji's grandson Chhatrapati Shahu to rule the Maratha Empire. But they were Brahmins, and this is where the controversy starts, because Bajirao Peshwa says in one of his incidents that, how do you call me a Brahmin when I picked up a sword and I'm actually fighting like a Maratha. So am I a Brahmin or am I actually a Maratha? But the Kokanastha Brahmin were so strong that they could not afford to have a ruler who represents the Maratha kingdom to the world outside as someone who does not follow the Brahminical ideals. And I sort of kind of understand where they came from. Bajiraw's own mother was his wife, his son. They were willing to go against the ruling Peshwa if the Peshwa was not willing to follow what was considered true Brahmin ideals. Even the priest decided not to perform any puja in Shaniwar Wada because the Peshwa was not following the Brahmin ideals. Now, this is an important point which should a king be seen as an ideal person who lives values for which the kingdom stands. And the very fact that he was marrying a Muslim dancer, giving her the status of a wife, eating meat, having wine, was not in line with what an ideal ruler should be doing. And I think that really brings about the controversy about why he was shunned and finally he sort of died a heartbroken man and Mastani died soon thereafter. Even the Muslim angle, if you look at the names you mentioned like Ali Bahadur or Shamsher Bahadur, his Mastani's own son through Bajirao had a Muslim name. And the Nawab of Bandas, they also follow the Muslim tradition. So there was a very strong Muslim connection which continues to be sort of followed historically, may or may not be true. But the whole controversy or the reason why this aspect of the Maratha history becomes so popular in folklore, in gossip, as well as in some parts of history, is because of the fact that here was one ruler who is ruling on behalf of Chhatrapati Shahu, who is seen as an ideal king, is doing things which are completely unacceptable to the Kokanastha Brahmin, Chitpavan Brahmin community. And I think as a ruler, he could have done that had he forsaken his throne, not the throne but the post which he was holding, which is the post of Peshwa, which is the Prime Minister ruling on behalf of the king. He didn't do that. And if you continue to do things which are against what is an ideal Peshwa supposed to be, I think the whole family revolted and decided to not accept it. I think that really makes the whole story very controversial.
I would just like to add to this controversy that is going on. Let's look at it from modern times. We have a lot of mixed marriages today. We have a lot of cross-cultural things happening. We have now a third gender even. And how would we today write about our history? I'm going to a performance soon after this show of a gentleman called Asta Debu who dances. And one would wonder, how would history remember him? His name is Asta Debu. He is of Parsi background. He dances a kind of a mix and mime and kathak and fusion, all kinds of things put together. He dresses quite a bit like a woman. And if we can relate to this in this day, we can understand how history would have treated these kind of issues back then. Because we, across the globe, like to be very definite about, who our leaders or our kings and our queens were. In history, we rarely portray them, unless it's Henry VIII, who was really a bad guy. We rarely write badly about these people. We always try to romanticize it and make it more beautiful, or probably in this case, make it more romantic. Yeah, the story would not have been interesting enough had the Muslim connection not be put in. So probably historians would have thought that a dancing lady, a Muslim marrying a Chitpavan Brahmin would make it very interesting. And that kind of also because it went against their grain, made it rather interesting and gossipy. We love today, even we read a lot of Bollywood magazines and we want to know who's going out with whom and why and who ditched whom, and all these controversies are something that are human nature. So we have great love stories. We have Layla, Majnun, and they're all tragic. A love story only becomes tragic and then it's famous. Even if you see Eric Segal's love story from the 70s was a tragic story. She got cancer and she died, and it became, a fantastic story to remember. So probably why didn't they write the romantic part about Kashibai? If she was the love of his life, why is Kashibai not that influence to Bajirao in history? Yeah?
Let me take it up from this last point. What about Kashibai, Bajirao's first wife? They were both children when they got married. They grew up together. And Kashibai was genuinely shocked when he brought home another wife, because she never thought that Rao would do that to her. She thought they were pals, She was genuinely shocked. At that point of time, they had one son, Nana Sahib, who grew up to be the next Peshwa, Balaji Bajirao. And if there is any suggestion that Kashibai was being neglected because Mastani came to live in the household, let me give you the facts. Mastani and Bajirao got married in the end of 1729 at Jaipur, and they reached Saswad in January 1730. Saswad was where he lived at that time. The Shanivar Wada at Pune had yet to be started. It was started after they reached Pune, after they reached Saswad, one day before Nana Sahib's wedding, which took place also in January 1730. The Wada was completed in January 1731, and it was after that the whole family went to live there. Now, Mastani's son from Bajirao was born in the month of January 1734. Between 1731 and 1733, obviously she must have conceived in 33, Kashibai had lost two children. One was born stillborn and one survived for a few months. After that, Mastani bore Shamsher Bahadur. He was originally called Krishna Singh because she was a Krishna Bhakt, so she called him Krishna Singh. And he was born in January 1734. And Kashibai's next son, the surviving son, Raghunath Rao, was born in August 1734. The next year she produced another child whose name was Raghunath Rao, Janardhan Rao. So there's no question of Kashibai being left out of this triangle. Now, about the consistent Muslim angle, let me give you two little tips. When Nana Sahib was getting married, a dancing troupe had been invited to dance and entertain the guests. Now, the person who was managing that dancing troupe was a person called Mastan, and their bakars show an entry of rupees of 100, which was paid to Mastan for the entertainment provided. Somewhere along the line, Mastan became Mastani, and fingers were pointed as Mastani as being the leader of that dancing troupe. And because Mastan was a Muslim, so obviously Mastani had to be a Muslim. And she used to do namaz and roza. Nobody bothered that she was also doing aarti and bhajan and aradhana, but it became more popular. Now, one thing I can tell you, that when Mastani left her father's house and was coming to Saswad with Bajirao, she was accompanied by a huge train. आप ये सोचिए कि let us assume for a moment that N.S. Inamdar, what he wrote about being the daughter of a Muslim dancing girl was correct. उन दिनों में, we are talking of 1729, 1730. अगर कोई राजा किसी और को एक नाचने वाली, उसको लौंडी बोलते थे उन दिनों में, किसी और को एक लौंडी पेश करते हैं, तो उसके साथ क्या देंगे? थोड़े कपड़े लगते देंगे, एक छोटा सा बटुआ देंगे सोने के सिक्कों के साथ, और उसको भेज देंगे। मस्तानी क्या लाई मैं आपको सुनाती हूँ। एक ज़माने में हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर जाते थे ना, तो वो पैकेज अनाउंस करते थे, कश्मीर पैकेज, आसाम पैकेज, बिहार पैकेज, एक गुजरात का पैकेज भी एक बार हुआ था। मैं इसको बुंदेलखंड पैकेज बोलती हूँ। ये बाजीराव का बुंदेलखंड पैकेज था कि मस्तानी के साथ साथ उसको मिला पहले तो लुगड़ा चोली, यू नो व्हाट वी कॉल चूसो, कपड़े, गहने, सोने चांदी के बर्तन, प्लस गिफ्ट्स फॉर बाजीराव एंटायर फैमिली, प्लस 5 लाख रुपया कैश। अब शाहू महाराज के लिए वॉर रेपरेशंस में सिर्फ 2.25 लाख भेजे गए, बाजीराव को 5 लाख रुपया कैश मिला। उसके अलावा 500 सोने के मोहर, वो जो मुगलों के ज़माने में जैसे गिनी चलती थी उसको मोहर बोलते थे, 500 सोने के मोहर, प्लस उसको एक वायदा दिया गया था कि अब की बार कभी भी जब आपको ज़रूरत पड़े तो पूरा बुंदेलखंड का जो इंटेलिजेंस नेटवर्क है वो आपको पूरी इंटेलिजेंस पहुंचाता जाएगा। क्योंकि छत्रसाल और उसके फादर चंपक राय दोनों मुगल आर्मी में काम करते थे, तो उन्होंने अपना इंटेलिजेंस नेटवर्क सेट किया था अफगानिस्तान तक, काबुल कंदाहार तक। तो उस बाजीराव को पुणे में बैठे बैठे पूरी इंडिया की, बंगाल से लेके काबुल कंदाहार तक की इंटेलिजेंस मिलती है और उसको एक्सेस मिला कि आपको दिल्ली जाना है, आप बुंदेलखंड से होके जाओ, राजपूताना से आप जाते हैं तो आपका बहुत टाइम वेस्ट हो जाता है। सब इतने सारे राजे होते हैं, सबको खमागड़ी बोलते बोलते 3 हफ्ते निकल जाते हैं और यहाँ से थ्रू 3 दिन में आप दिल्ली पहुँच सकते हैं। उसके अलावा अभी ये सब के अलावा छत्रसाल के अपने तब जिंदा 52 बेटे थे, उन सबको उन्होंने थोड़ी थोड़ी जागीरें दी और जो उसका सबसे बड़ा लड़का था पदम सिंह, उसको राजपाट में कुछ खास इंटरेस्ट नहीं दिया था, तो उसको कुछ ज़मीन जागीर दे के कंफर्टेबल कर दिया। बाकी रहे 2 सबसे बड़े, गिरदेसा और जगतराज। तो वहाँ पे बाजीराव के सामने एक विल लिखी गई जिसमें छत्रसाल ने अपना पूरा राज इन दोनों बेटों के नाम डिवाइड करके और सबके सामने ये ऐलान किया कि दोनों बेटों के भाग में से एक तीसरा हिस्सा, 1/3 from each son's share will go to Peshwa Bajirao as a personal jagir. It's not for the Maratha state or for Shahu Maharaj. It will be Bajirao's personal jagir. And the estimated revenue of that jagir was 32 lakhs per annum. I'm talking of 32 lakhs in the year 1729. Please remember, आज की तारीख में वो 300 करोड़ जितना हो जाता। अच्छा, वो बस नहीं, इसके अलावा और कुछ भी मिला। बुंदेलखंड पैकेज का लास्ट आइटम ये था कि वो जो छत्रसाल को स्वामी प्राणनाथ ने हीरे और पन्ने की माइंस दी थी एज अ रिकम्पेंस फॉर प्रोपगेटिंग द प्रणामी पंथ, उसका जितना आउटपुट था उसका 1/3 भाग बाजीराव को मिलेगा। आप देखिए कि ये इतना बड़ा बुंदेलखंड पैकेज, कैश, गोल्ड कॉइन्स, जागीर, इंटेलिजेंस नेटवर्क प्लस हीरे पन्ने, आप एक मुसलमान नाचने वाले को देंगे? कौन देगा? आज का कोई राजा देगा? मैं बोलती हूँ इंडिया का सबसे बड़ा इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट जो है मुकेश अंबानी, वो भी अपनी खुद की बेटी को ये इतना नहीं देगा। वो कब देंगे? When they know they are going to get something back. And what was Chhatrasal going to get back? He was going to get the hand of the strongest man in India at that time, Peshwa Bajirao the First, placed his hands in blessing over his 2 sons, Hirdesa and Jagatraj, to ensure that nobody in Bundelkhand would challenge them, because Bundelkhand was a land of hundreds of principalities, and he would be always bound by this to help his sons. You see, it was a package. Mastani, actually, it was a political alliance Mastani was Chhatrasal is the lord of the Peshwa. हाँ, धीरे धीरे बाद में, because both of them were so good looking, so talented, that they fell in love. She was able to give solace to not only his mind but also his soul. और धीरे धीरे वो मोहब्बत भी हो गई, और जब persecution शुरू हुआ, and that also not immediately 1737 के बाद, तब क्योंकि आप दो प्रेमियों को जितना अलग करने की कोशिश करेंगे वो उतने ही ज़्यादा करीब आएंगे, तब ये लव स्टोरी बनी जिसने पूरे हिंदुस्तान को झंझोड़ के रखा। पर एक मुसलमान नाचने वाली को कोई इतनी लंबी चौड़ी डावरी नहीं होती।
No, I have a slightly different view on that. I mean, the whole reason the persecution started was definitely for not just one, probably multiple reasons. Clearly, the Muslim angle, you know, Peshwa Bajirao is a Chitpan Brahmin who is not a Maratha like Shivaji, who had probably more than 10 wives. They had one wife. He was a Brahmin ruler, and in today's time, this is the point you raised. You expect if the Prime Minister Modi is carrying out a fight against corruption, you expect Modi himself to be totally incorruptible. Similarly, the people expected Bajirao to follow the ideals which he represented as a Peshwa, as a ruler of the Maratha Empire. And why was Mastani not accepted? Because obviously he was doing things which were against what was the social norm. And the Brahmins were powerful enough to even ostracize the ruling Peshwa himself. Even in today's social commentary, I think it still continues, whether it is on 1729 or even if you look at 2016, a marriage of this kind would not be accepted by the society today so easily, especially if it is at that level. So I still believe that the social values which the Chitpan Brahmin stood for, even today in Pune, if you were to ask a Kokrasta Brahmin that I am getting my son married to a Muslim girl, I suppose there would be a very strong objection. So it still continues.
This is where we differ, Pandeji. Ki I don't accept Mastani was at all Muslim. And also, I would say that when you talk of a ruler having to do things for the sake of his people, right? And the biggest objection was कि बाजीराव मीट खाता है, शराब पीता है, and presumably मस्तानी ने वो आदतें उनको डाली हैं. So there are plenty of records which indicate that Bajirao started taking meat when he started his campaigns to bring himself closer to the soldiers whom he led. Liquor also started at that time because the Rajput Kshatriyas both ate meat and drink liquor. Mastani was a Pranampanthi, and Pranampanथियों के तीन बहुत बड़े असूल हैं. एक तो वो कृष्ण भक्त हैं, वो मीट को हाथ नहीं लगाते हैं, शराब को हाथ नहीं लगाते और स्मोक भी नहीं करते. So it is impossible that this was thanks to Mastani. So there is no way that all that happened. And if she was a Muslim dancing girl, Pandeji, I am accepting for 1 minute your proposal. When Mastani got pregnant in 1733, you know what happened? You have any idea what happened? They were out on a campaign at that time. And Bajirao had just received the news of the death of the second of Kashibai's children. You know, the two sons which she lost. So immediately he took Mastani right back to Pune and placed her in the care of his mother Radha Bai and told her, "Ki Bai, I have lost 2 children. I don't want to lose this one. I'm making you responsible to look after her." Throughout her pregnancy, Mastani was living under the personal supervision of Radha Bai. And she was a very strict lady. She was herself a Deshash Brahmin. She was not a Chitpavan, but she was a Deshash Brahmin. But she observed everything just as Mastani had learned to observe all the roles and rituals of a Muslim household. And she was there supervising right until the child was delivered. All the time, when Kashibai got pregnant, she brought her also. She moved out of the Shaniwar Bara to another Bara where the living quarters were on the ground floor so that they would not have to climb up during pregnancy. So, under those circumstances, I don't think this Muslim argument is valid anymore. Because a lady who is herself a Brahmin, looking after her husband's Muslim dancing girl, can you imagine that happening? Does it happen? कि बेटे की नाचने वाली को सासू में संभालेगी?
I think we'll have to close it now. We've run out of time. We'll take the last questions if you have any. Yeah.
I would request to keep the questions a little short and crisp, please.
To the point.
I'm having two questions. One is, what is the age difference between Bajirao and Mastani?
15 years.
15 years. And my favorite one, how did Mastani die?
That remains a mystery. Nobody knows for sure. There are no proofs. And usually they say that when Mastani heard that Bajirao was dead, she collapsed and she died.
Heartbroken. That's the
That is
most
the
likely
popular thing.
I agree on that.
Yeah, but no, I don't agree on that. Let me tell you, in my book Mastani, because after all that research, I could not find any proof. You know, that is what delayed my book. This is my book Mastani. So I wrote it according to this story which was going around. She just collapsed and she died. But I was not happy. So I didn't send the manuscript to any publisher. And after a few months, one night I got a dream, which, you know, her death played out in front of my eyes. And I wrote it. So my book is the only book in India which has two different endings. You have to read this book to find out what the other ending is.
Any further questions? Yes.
आपने जो रेफरेंस मटेरियल यूज किया है, जो आपको विरासत में दिया गया था, एंड पब्लिश बुक फॉर्म में पब्लिश हुआ है, वो अवेलेबल है क्या?
मेरे को तो उन्होंने खुद कॉपी भेजी, हिंदी में है और शायद मध्य प्रदेश इंदौर वगैरह में मिलता हो.
Here in the book festival it wouldn't be available.
I see.
Here would it be available?
No, it will not be available over here.
Okay, thanks a lot.
हेलो, कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है, मगर अभी मैं भूज गया था. भूज में आईना महल करके बहुत बड़ा महल है, म्यूजियम है. वहाँ मस्तानी जी का पोर्ट्रेट है. वहाँ के जो क्यूरेटर हैं उन्होंने कुछ बता दिया कि 17वीं सदी में उत्तरार्ध में इसका जब इनॉग्रेशन था तब मस्तानी और बाजीराव को इन्वाइट किया था. तब उसका जो ओरिजिनल जो पोर्ट्रेट है वो वहाँ पे है. आपकी
वो बोला गया है पर मैं वहाँ पे नहीं गई. मैं एक्चुअली ढूंढने गई थी वो जो वही में नाना फडणवीस के बारे में है वो और केरला म्यूजियम में है. मगर most of the historians who have been writing on Mastani have agreed that these portraits are not of Mastani. They were done after her death from people's recollections. So actually there is no picture of the real Mastani.
सेल्फी का जमाना नहीं था.
Hello, ma'am. My question is not specific to Mastani and Baji Rao. It is more of filmmaking as such. The thing is that filmmakers tend to blend history and fiction to produce the most entertaining picture possible. I personally believe if you do that, you should rename and not use the actual names of the characters if you're not 100% sure about your research and the facts. What do you think about it? Do they tend to overstep more than they should?
I think that the filmmaker has the liberty to be creative about it, especially in a story where there are a lot of controversies and people are not really sure. Like Jodha Akbar is a complete fiction, so people can write about Aran Kali or Jodha Akbar, because here there's a very strong element of history. But I think I personally believe, having translated Rao and having seen the movie as well, I mean, a lot of people in Pune had an objection to Kashibai and Mastani dancing together, which is quite ridiculous from a real life perspective. It wouldn't have happened. But from a movie perspective, given the fact that he's trying to entertain, my view is it's fine, and I endorse that. I like it.
I think the dancing objection was not so much to the dance, but that they used Lavani for it.
And both of them dancing together as well,
Yes.
which is...
So Lavani is not something that could be danced at the courts. And that was the objection that most Maharashtrians had.
Yeah, don't you think it
There was also an objection because in real life, Kashibai had a problem with her legs and she used to walk with a limp. So many historians really were very cut up about seeing that.
No, what I was asking you was, don't you think they should use fictional names rather than the real ones?
No, I think then the story loses its charm. The whole, which is why I started by saying that the whole controversy about Bajirao Mastani is the fact that there are so many elements which are not known. There's a mystery, there's a Muslim angle, there's a corruption angle, there's an angle that the ruler is not living up to his ideals, there's a tragic death, there's a supposedly, she was killed by people. So it's all these elements which actually of intrigue, which really make the story exciting. So I think the filmmaker is just exploiting the intrigue, which I believe is his right to do that.
And what difference would it make if it was some other name? The story remains the same.
No, I mean we are taking it as a
That is for the viewer to understand.
Just mentioning
Whatever you may read, whether it's historical or fictional, it's actually the viewers or the reader's imagination that then takes it further. So that is where we have to be careful when observing and taking things at regular value. Exactly. WhatsApp is doing it. Our whole politics depends on the way we portray. News is given out. So it's very much down to how we use our own intelligences and our own common sense to understand these issues.
Hello. Based on your arguments, my question is that was it love story or a political deal? Was it love story or political deal?
Well, let me tell you, it started out as a political alliance. But then when you throw two people, both of them good looking, both of them highly intelligent, both of them very talented together, love is bound to happen. And it was, and it is only because sometimes love does happen for a short while. But because they are married, it's a prolonged association. And you are beginning to relate to each other and you come across opposition. Then you tend to cling even more to each other. So the whole, this tragic love story came about because of all the resistance. If it had, then one doesn't know what would have happened.
Yeah, I'm not a historian like ma'am is, but my belief is it was a love story. The political alliances during Shivaji's time, he was a Maratha ruler, were extremely common. I think he had more than 10 wives. But the Chitpavan Brahmins were not Marathas. They were Brahmins, and I think if it was just a political alliance, it would have been accepted by the family very well. But because of the love story angle, because of the Muslim angle is where the whole objection really starts to become. So, I mean, there's no final answer to that, but that's my belief.
See, Chitpavan Brahmins are very proud of their ancestry. But let me tell you one thing, Bajirao's father, Balaji Vishwanath, he also had another wife, and that lady was a Maratha lady. And she had a son whose name was Bikaji Shinde, who was Bajirao's brother.
Yeah, but people used to call it a concubine, not a wife.
Yes, but whatever it was, there was a relationship. He gave her a village in Grant to maintain herself, and he entrusted his son Bikaji Shinde to the care of Bajirao, who made Bikaji Shinde a Pagedar in his army. Pagedar is a foot soldier. And Mastani's son, who was later renamed Shamsher Bahadur because one of Chhatrasal's sons was also named Shamsher Bahadur. So he was renamed Shamsher Bahadur, and he lived in Shaniwar Wada itself. There is no record of Shamsher Bahadur having become a Muslim. In fact, he followed the Varkari sect. He wore tilak and a tulsi mala all his life, and during the third battle of Panipat, he was leading one segment of the Maratha army as a general, and he gave up his life for the Maratha nation at that battle. So you can see the difference between what we would like to call a concubine and his son, her son, and Shamsher Bahadur. There you have it. And there are so many other proofs, but
I think you'll have to wait for another session like this someday. But we'll have to bring it to a close because there are other speakers here, and we've outstayed our stay here. But it remains a mystery. It remains intriguing. It remains one of those love stories that will probably never die. And maybe one movie has been made, but probably many will come later. Yeah, serial is coming up. So stay tuned for Mastani.
તો આ સેશન મસ્તાની હિન્દુ હતી કે મુસ્લિમ તે સેશન પ્રશ્ન તરીકે શરૂ થયો હતો, પ્રશ્ન તરીકે જ અંત થાય છે. થેન્ક યુ સો મચ કુસુમ મેમ, ગૌરી મેમ અને વિક્રાંત સર ફોર બિંગ ઓવર હિયર. હવે પછીનો જે સેશન છે તેનું નામ છે કન્ટેન્ટ ઇઝ કિંગ બટ કોપીરાઇટ ઇઝ કિંગ મેકર. કિંગની જેટલી મહત્તા હોય છે તેનાથી વધારે કિંગ મેકરની મહત્તા હોય છે અને તે ઓછા યાદ રખાતા હોય છે. કોપીરાઇટ્સ વિશેની વાત કરવા માટે આપણી સાથે છે જતીન ત્રિવેદી અને તુષાર વ્યાસ. ગુજરાત લિટરેચર ફેસ્ટિવલના 4th એડિશનમાં છો તમે અને ગુજરાત લિટરેચર ફેસ્ટિવલના પેટ્રન્સ તરીકે અમારી સાથે જોડાયા છે. રિલાયન્સ ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રીઝ લિમિટેડ મેઇન સ્પોન્સર્સ તરીકે અમારી સાથે છે જાગૃતિ ગ્રુપ અને